Good evening, everybody. I'm Capt Ron, and this is Fearless Flight Live. Welcome to the December 12th edition. And with me tonight, nobody. Everybody's abandoned me. Dieter, unfortunately, sadly, is down with some kind of bug, and he's okay, but he's pretty sick. And Diane and Eric have the night off, the week off. Actually, they're both traveling and visiting friends and playing in the water. So it'll be just you and I this evening, and I'm happy to be here. Let me pull up my slides here and get this thing going. Of course, Fearless Flight Live is where you come if you have a fear of flying, or you know somebody who's afraid to fly, or you just like talking about airplanes and flying. We enjoy answering your questions and supporting any of you out there who have a fear of flying, or know somebody in that way. We, of course, encourage you to join our Fearless Flight Facebook group. It's approaching, I thought we were over 1,500. We're just short of 1,500. We'll have some kind of a gala celebration when we cross that mark. And it's a place to go to meet others and leave questions and remarks, and also get information for yourself. Tonight, I'm going to just give you an update, a reminder about the next Clear for Takeoff 201 live monthly group coaching webinar on December 21st. And it'll be at 6:30, and we'll talk about, I'll give you the highlights on that. And then I've got a bunch of news articles tonight. And if there's any questions, let me look over here. Whoops. Let me see if I can get rid of my, I'm trying to monitor this on my own, and it's not liking me. Okay, if that's the way it wants to play. If you have a question, just send it to me at my cell phone, 602-315-4602, and I'll keep up with you that way. Okay, so let's talk about the webinar first. As I said, it's coming up on December 21st. That is our monthly Clear for Takeoff 201 live group coaching webinar, and it's where we dedicate some of the time to a topic of interest. And this month it'll be overcoming flight anxiety, flying over water with no place to land. How do we do that? We must do it pretty successfully, because unless you've seen something I haven't, we haven't put one in the drink here for a long time. So come and get updated on that, and bring all your questions, because we do spend a large part of the time talking live, interacting live with the people who join us on Zoom, to answer their questions and do some private coaching. So be happy to include you in the group there. Let me switch over and talk just a little bit about a couple of articles in here that are related to us in the fear of flying business here. This one was, of course, you know, all of you get freaked out, and justifiably so, if you don't know what's going on, when extreme turbulence causes passengers to be thrown around, like on this Emirates flight. This is just my efforts to relate to something that you may have seen in the news, and this happened suddenly, apparently, because according to one of the posts in the article there, someone who was on the flight and shared the photos of ceiling cracks where somebody actually hit the ceiling. How do they do that? You say they weren't strapped in. And of course, the post is always dramatic. It says, "I hate flying, so rarely I get up unless I need to." And the pilot announced turbulence and to sit down. And literally a second later, myself and others hit the ceiling. We really, really operate on the safe side generally as pilots. And I can't imagine. Well, I shouldn't say I can't imagine it happening, because it did. But that is a rarity, where it would happen with such suddenness that people wouldn't have time to either return to their seats or make sure that their seats are securely fastened. But we, as we always emphasize, the only way that people get hurt, which is the case on this airplane, was that they weren't fastened in at the time, and so we'll just keep that out there as a warning and validation that the only way you can get hurt, and you can get hurt, is if you're if something sudden comes up or you don't have your seatbelt fastened. Okay. So here's an interesting kind of a follow-up. It has made the news over the past few years when we've had pilots go wacko or suspect that they went wacko. Malaysian Air Flight 340 back in 2014, and then most recently there was a commuting Alaska Air pilot who was on the jump seat and tried to shut down the engines there. You may have seen that story in the news. Well, this is from an NTSB forum. They're looking at mental health regulations for pilots. We haven't really had any, because it's such a long trail to get to be a pilot at the airline level that it hasn't been necessary in the past. But now, with the incidents and the furor that it creates in the media, they're looking at that. So the NTSB had a mental health forum, and pilots expressed their fear of reporting issues due to potential permanent grounding by the FAA. And the NTSB chairman, Jennifer Homendy, criticized existing rules as outdated. And I think that says something about the NTSB. The NTSB is the arm of the government that investigates all transportation accidents, and of course, airlines and aviation is one of them. And the FAA, they're charged with safety and promoting aviation, which has kind of always been a conflicting thing. But anyway, so this is the NTSB chairman saying that pilots need to be able to access therapy, as do any other people or human beings, okay, without fear of losing their jobs. And that's been the thing that keeps coming up inadvertently, or not inadvertently, but regularly. And it shows that a study of over 56% of U.S. pilots avoid medical treatment for fear of losing FAA certification. And that's really sad in this day and age. It included the family of John Hauser, and that was the 19-year-old student pilot who committed suicide due to mental health struggles for fear of losing his FAA certification. So tragedy out there. United Airlines First Officer Troy Merritt has been grounded for treatment of anxiety and depression, and he faces a lengthy process before being allowed to fly again, despite using FAA-approved medication. So despite the fact that he's following the rules, he can't get back on. And I know that this has been a long-standing issue, certainly for the 50 years that I've been involved with the airlines. My first year as an airline pilot in 1978 saw the first pilot, he was at our airline, have a simple bypass operation and return to flight status after years fighting to get his job back. And since that time, of course, it's become normalized, as it has with the general population. He passed his first class medical or physical, but the FAA dragged their feet, acknowledging that such an operation, despite acknowledging that the operation had been proven safe and effective for the general population. So that's where I don't mean to excuse any pilots who do not tell the truth and try to bypass the system like this, but certainly, it doesn't justify them, but it certainly may explain why they do that. And today, for example, bypasses are routine and do not automatically ground a pilot. Another thing that came out of the AIRM was a discussion of this guy, Joseph Emerson, who was off duty from Alaska Airlines and on the jump seat. He had a moment where he lost it, tried to shut off the engines. They got him under control and curtailed, put him in the cabin there. And it just points out that, again, his backstory. I think for his sake, he's going to be. I think when he was arraigned, they're showing some understanding and leniency. And but the underlying reason was he was trying to treat his own issues for depression, and that's routine in the general population anymore. So United Airlines, Scott Kirby, the CEO Scott Kirby, weighed in on this and said that our pilots are monitored and undergo regular training but I don't think they do anything special that the other airlines do. It just, other than you report, you have simulators, you're under the gun, you're flying with multiple people observing you, and so it's hard to get that past anybody, despite the fact that there have been incidents of that. I came up with some questions here that are worth pondering. I think one would be stigma versus safety. How do we balance the need to reduce the stigma around mental health in the aviation industry while ensuring passenger safety? I think that goes along with our general cultural stigma about mental health. We're not very forgiving when it comes to people with mental health problems in our culture, and extends into aviation. A reporting system. What changes could we make to the current system to encourage pilots to report mental health issues without fearing loss of their career? Well, I think just tell them that they're not going to lose their career. There's a process we have had for years. I was involved in it myself as one of the monitors in the program, in our alcohol treatment program. An airline pilot, the airline industry, we have the highest success rate of any industry for returning pilots back to service after they've taken themselves off or been removed from flying for alcohol addiction or substance abuse. And we could do that with all. We could extend it to mental health as well. Wouldn't be any big deal, I don't think. Another question: how can the FAA and airlines create a supportive system that allows pilots to seek treatment and return to work without unnecessary delay? I think that's a longstanding question for the FAA is how can we get them to be more responsive when pilots do identify themselves and they get caught in this molasses and not being able to get returned to duty. A couple other ones there. Let's see. Global standards. Should there be a global standard for addressing pilot mental health, given the international nature of aviation? I think absolutely. There was years ago, there was an Egyptian Air accident, a 767 that crashed not too long after takeoff, and it was also suspect that the captain on that airplane may have caused the airplane to crash. So those are some issues with that, and I just thought this was worthy of mentioning because it does come up in the news, and people ask me all the time, what's the deal here when we have pilots who display some kind of behavioral health challenges? Another story, a different theme, but definitely related to you folks. It says Southwest Airlines faces a big boarding problem it can't solve. Well, what is that problem? It is pre-boarding. Now, the airline is facing complaints due to the unique boarding policy, which because they do not have assigned seating. And frequent flyers often like the no assigned seating system, as they can manipulate it to their advantage, but it's problematic. And what they mean is passengers who show up and request a wheelchair. Now, I want to distinguish this. This is not people who are fearful flyers and follow the recommended procedure that I put out, which was given to me by Southwest Airline, and I'll review that in just a minute. But they come up, and you have a number of people that use wheelchairs, and so they get priority boarding. They wheel them down, and sometimes they'll stand up in the jetway and board and walk onto the airplane under their own power. But mysteriously, when they get to the destination, let's just say you had 10 wheelchairs, that people requesting wheelchairs to get on the airplane. When they get to the destination, it's not it's not at all unlikely or unusual for nobody to request a wheelchair at the destination. In other words, people seem to be taking advantage of that, getting a wheelchair, getting priority boarding up at the front of the airplane so that they can exit quickly when they get there. Now, for fearful flyers, if you followed me at all, you know that and this came from Southwest, but it works on any airline. If you have a fear of flying, I recommend that you board early because of the efforts to keep your anxiety down lower, and for the opportunity to talk to the flight crew and share with them that you are a nervous flyer. And what that entails is when you get to the gate, you walk up to the gate agent and you announce to to them that you have a medical condition. Use those exact words. If you're on Southwest Airline in particular, I have a medical condition and I need a special seat, because on Southwest, you would not have been assigned a seat. And then what that does is it puts you up with the people who request wheelchairs. You'll be allowed to board ahead of all the passengers in their ABC boarding system. And when you do that, then it gives you time to announce to the flight attendant. So you don't mention anything but a medical condition to the gate agent to get the early boarding pass. But when you get on the airplane, now you can say to the flight attendant, "Hi, my name is Ron. I'm a little nervous about flying. Anything you can do to help me, I would appreciate, or any information you can give me." And then the last thing you do is ask if you can meet the pilots. And 9 times out of 10, they escort you up there. And when you get to the pilots, you repeat the same thing. "Hi, my name is Ron. I'm a little nervous about flying. Anything you can tell me about today's flight, I would appreciate." And tell them, I don't like turbulence particularly. So, anything you can do to not only tell me when it's coming, but tell me how long you think it's going to last. Because it seems to help fearful flyers to know if there's a finite duration of it, and the pilots can share that with you. It seems to take some of the pressure off out there. So we'll see what happens with this, because Southwest is kind of in a quandary, because in order to change this, they would have to. The only thing I see right now is changing their entire boarding system. The other airlines, the other majors, United, Delta, and American, don't share this same dilemma, because their priority seats, well, first of all, their seats are already assigned before you get to the airplane for the most part, and their priority or more popular seats they control, because they charge more for them. If you're in an extra row, you pay more for that. If you're on certain aisle seats towards the front of the airplane, you pay for that as well. So they're not in this same cauldron of soup as Southwest is. So it'll be interesting. So we'll stay tuned and follow that and see what happens down the road. Okay, and here's another one, and so kind of bring the news where the items in the airlines to a close here. American has another interesting problem related to passengers. They just finished negotiating a new contract with their pilots, and they made some changes that disadvantages pilots but favor pilots. And I noticed this. I flew over the weekend, and I flew as a non-revenue, as a former employee. If there's space available on the flight, it gives me the opportunity to fly. And so I flew on it, and I always notice when I listed that we get some data beforehand. It shows us how many passengers are booked on the flight, and how many non-revenue passengers like me are waiting to get on. And it shows statistics like first class seats, who's boarded, all that. And I've noticed there's always been, let's say you have 10 seats or 20 seats, there's always been 2 or 3 seats in first class that have been unfilled. And then there's, of course, they can fill them easily by offering them to certain revenue passengers. But anyway, I noticed they live. And when I got on the other day, there were 2 pilots in uniform in the first class section. And that was before. And then I saw this article coming out, and that explained it. Although I've got a lot of friends that had not told me about this yet. So one of the problems in the airlines, of course, is a shortage of pilots ever since the pandemic, and letting a lot of them retire early, and then the airline business returning by leaps and bounds before they were prepared for it, and a shortage of pilots out there to hire. So anyway, so the COVID kind of triggered this thing, and with that, it puts the opportunity, or the pilot's job, more in the position of demanding some certain things or concessions. And so the American pilots, what they did was they said, if they're deadheading, and that's a term we use, if I'm going to work in Phoenix, but my first flight, I have to ride the airplane back to Chicago, for example, I will ride in the back as a passenger, and then I will get up and take my flight beyond that. So if I deadhead. So now the American pilots have in their contract that they get seats in first class, first and foremost. The other airlines, United, Southwest, and Delta, have not done this yet, but they're all in the negotiations, or well, at least Southwest is in negotiation stages, so it'll be interesting. Although they don't have first class, so it'll be interesting what they would do. But all the airlines are going to fall victim to this. And but the downside, of course, is it takes away a revenue seat from a first class passenger, potential first class passenger. So both United and Americans have preferential treatment now, and it'll be interesting, like I said, to see what happens down the road. Some of the issues with this are or some questions that we might consider is that, how could they avoid or negotiate this out? And the only thing I can think of is they might offer to buy it back from the pilot. So he gets first class. If he wants to sell it back, then they give him the money and he goes and sits in the back somewhere. But we'll stay tuned on this as well to see what happens out there. It's definitely a new twist in labor negotiations, because for so many years all negotiations, all the positive and leverage was usually on management side. So it'll be interesting to see what happens down the road. And the economic implications are, what does this mean to the airlines? I mean, because they're in the business to generate revenue. So will they have to raise prices to compensate for that? They'll try to cover their costs somehow, guarantee you. So anyway, okay. Let me bring it to the end here with a limited staff and everything. This is the Overcoming Flight Anxiety live monthly group coaching webinar, and we're going to specialize or focus on flying over water with no place to land. It's coming up December 21st, and there's the link. You can go register for that. We have two plans. You can either just attend one of them, or you can join it on a monthly basis. We love to have you. It's a growing number of people, and people seem to enjoy it. We've been doing this for about a year now. So every session includes a live one-to-one interactive coaching session, and I do a custom guided visualization. And then we also feature some content in this week again, or this month. It's going to be about flying over water, and we offer always, of course, endeavor to answer your questions. So if you have any interest at all, we'd sure love to see you, and so sign up there using that link. Okay, that's about all I had, and I apologize, I can't get to the questions. I got a 404 error on my account here. So next week we'll come back, and we'll have a special crew edition again. So send your questions. If I didn't, since I couldn't answer them live on the show tonight, I'd be more than happy to respond either directly or through our social media, whichever seems to be the most appropriate. So anyway, thanks to everybody for watching Fearless Flight Live again. We'll be back next week for another edition, and I hope you have a great week as we get closer and closer to Christmas.